All right. Hey, Practice Bobsy. This is D'Angelo, and today I have a great guest here. This is Dr. Ali Aldabi, and he is a new practice owner who can't wait to share his story with you guys. I think he's going to have a great story that's going to be motivational to a lot of you guys, and just a lot of what the Practice Biopsy group is about, which is just showing you that really anyone who wants to do this can do this. So Ali is in like a pretty darn competitive area, a place where the door to ownership is very difficult for a lot of young doctors, especially San Diego. So um, Ali had a couple goals. So Ali, how far out of school are you right now?
3 years,
So
pretty much
three
on the
years out of
dot.
school. So basically, practically a new grad, not a lot of money to spend. Probably already some student loan debt, not trying to go in a ton of additional debt just to become a practice owner. So a couple big goals. And Ali is someone that went through the Practice Biopsy Practice Launch CE course. So a couple big goals. Keep the money we spend low. And a goal for him was that he really wanted to be California, San Diego area, and was able to get somewhere, I believe, within 15 minutes of home.
Yeah, that was kind of a lucky break, actually. But I think that a lot of it was just positioning yourself to be lucky.
Yeah,
And I
tell me
think
tell me
that,
about that. Positioning yourself to be lucky.
at the end of the day, like what I was doing was I first started by trying to figure out what specifically I was looking for in terms of cost of fixed overhead and in terms of cost of the practice sale. I think those are, I mean, and in dentistry, it's really much a fixed overhead kind of business.
Yep.
As long as you have the costs of your practice loan low and the cost of your rent low, once you hit those numbers, it's your costs will scale with what you're doing.
Yep.
That and staff, but staff is something you can't avoid.
So
So
so San Diego, everyone thinks really expensive. How much are you spending to get this practice?
I found this practice for sale for $50,000, and the rent is 2,400.
So
So it
with
was
a
a pretty.
practice, if the practice is 50,000, are you paying cash or are you financing it?
I'm financing it just because I
Yep.
wanted the working capital,
So
but if
when
the
you're
bank says
financing
no,
50,000, what's your monthly loan payment?
it's $500 a month.
And plus 2,500 rent. So your
Yeah,
your fixed cost break even is $3,000 a month.
it's about a day of work. Yeah.
So
So
one day, so after $3,000, everything else is pretty much gravy.
yeah, and I mean that's what it's about. At the end of the day, that's what your course is about. It's about profitability, right?
So
It's not
yeah,
about.
when I got the email from you that said that when you told me the good news, you said that it helped you like make the best decision of your life. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with the Practice Launch CE course and how you feel like it helped you in this process?
I think that was the single most important decision that I've made in my career so far. And the reason why
Thank
is
you.
just because, yeah, well, yeah, you did a great job. The reason why is that with a lot of CE courses, a lot of mentorship, you get bits and pieces here and there, and then it's kind of dependent on like what did I remember, what am I trying to implement here? Do I really have that big picture in mind? This was comprehensive, and it's on demand, which is incredible because I've seen myself watching and rewatching the same videos like 5 or 6 times if it's escaped me. It helped me literally write my business plan just going down through the modules. It's pretty much laid out there for you, and the principles were there. It's a data driven, analysis driven practice technique, and that's really exactly what I was going for. I wanted to make sure that I had something that made sense. The numbers added up, and it was doing everything that I wanted it to do.
It means a lot to be able to hear that from you, and I'm glad that you're like someone who's on my like steady growing list of people getting into this. I would say more of the people, it's probably getting closer to 50-50, but between a startup and an acquisition, how did you make that choice? How did you process that decision? You ended up doing an acquisition, not a startup. What was your
Right.
mindset on that?
I actually was jumping between different options. At one point I was looking at a startup. At one point I was looking at a turnkey. At another point I was looking at acquisitions, and that's where positioning yourself to be lucky kind of came in.
Mhm.
I did the analysis on several locations. I'm like, one of these spots is what I'm going to end up going
Mhm.
to. I then started scouring every agent that was having practices available for sale and looked, are these within my ranges? Overwhelmingly, they weren't. And I was looking at the cost of real estate at the end of the day. San Diego, the big thing that's going to crush you is the real estate cost. And so I looked at East County, which is about half the cost of San Diego proper. And I was getting ready to practice there. I was getting ready to do my own building from scratch and try and see what kind of creative ways I can try and lower those costs. And then that's when, because I was scouring every day, every single thing that I could find on Google, I happened across an advertisement that was meant for print, and it was posted early. So I set myself up in a position where I was like, this is amazing. It's a $50,000 practice, collecting right now $250 a year. The doctor's 78 years old, but he's doing zero marketing.
How many ops?
And it has 4 ops.
Nice.
And
you can do a lot of dentistry out of 4 ops.
Oh yeah, they're fully plumbed out. It has its own doctor's office, and it has an extra front desk. And I'm at some point, if I really am growing enough, I can convert the doctor's office into a 5th op, and then move the front desk and make it another doctor's office.
Yep.
And 5 is really that sweet spot, anyways. But 4, I mean, you know how good 4 is.
Yeah, 4. I mean, 4 is simple. You can do a lot of bread and butter, simple dentistry there. If you want to, you can do, some high-end niche dentistry there. Just with your practice style, are you more of like simple bread and butter dentistry, or are you more of like select high-end cases, big cosmetic stuff? What's your dentistry style, Ali?
I'm looking for high volume, lean and mean style.
Yeah.
And so, especially because California has a very HMO dense area, you're going to want to get those capitation payments, and you're going to also want to be focusing on upgraded materials like zirconium rather than metal. You're going to look at wanting to include specialists in your practice. So it's this idea of trying to get as much as you can in the doors, really, at the end of the day. And it works for me. That's what I've been doing for the last 3 years, and I feel comfortable with my skill set right now. So it's kind of a win-win for me there.
You said it's like 15 minutes from home. Have you lived in that area a long time, like most of your life, or just previously?
No. So actually, as far as as I was born and raised in Chicago, and I went to school in the St. Louis area. And it was during the last winter that I was in St. Louis that I said I was changing a tire in the snow, and my pants were getting all wet, and it was freezing. And I said, I'm never doing this again for the rest of my life. So I just basically looked on the map, and I was like, San Diego, that's the place I want to be. I was between that and Texas is probably better for business opportunity, but San Diego had more of the culture and everything that I was looking for there.
What would you say is like one of the bigger difference makers between, like, you were able to get into San Diego in a 4-hour practice for $50,000, which is basically free, and then you can make what you want with that space. Honestly, at this point, you've got a built-in revenue, you've got a built-in patient base. It's practically free, and anything you do from this point is extra. I would say most dentists who are going in San Diego or another expensive area like that, they're going to spend anywhere, honestly, between $500,000 to $1 million, $2 million sometimes even, to get a practice like the one you got. So what do you think was the best way and the best actions that you took to position yourself to be lucky, like we were talking about?
So for me, it was all about doing my homework and being like, one of the key things that you focus on is in your course is when you take over a practice, you're going to be making less money on day one because you have a practice loan that the seller didn't have, right? And so the cost of real estate and practice loan, it's really about knowing what your numbers are supposed to be. I was comfortable with paying a little more than $50,000, but at the end of the day, I said my total rent plus practice loan needs to equal this much money. And after that, it's just being patient. It's looking, and there was a couple opportunities that I stumbled on that weren't this one. There was another practice for sale. It was $99,000 with a $2,000 rent. It's pretty much the same deal.
And then something that like a listener may think is like, okay, San Diego, expensive place. He got this practice so cheap. It must be like a horrible area. So you said with your location analysis with like the gold, silver, bronze, it was a silver ranked location. So that means it's at least pretty good. Tell me about like the quality of the actual location itself.
So most important thing, dentist to population ratio is 3,000 to 1, which is excellent. The median property growth and the population growth are very high.
Mhm.
Median income is about $83,000.
Dude, you're
that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with the demographics of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dentists in the area, but there's a high population too.
Yeah.
So it's a well insulated
with
area.
1 to 3,000, I mean, you'd be pretty well positioned even for a startup, which this isn't. I mean, you have a built-in revenue, 250,000
Right.
built-in patient base. I've got one guy right now who's he's about to sign his lease. I know he's listening to this. He's probably going to comment. He found a spot with a dentist to population ratio. I think his is like 1 to 13,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it well insulated though? That's one of the things to worry about.
I know. Yeah, I think he's pretty good on that. But San Diego, I mean, that's probably well insulated because it's already pretty built out. Like it's not easy to get in to San Diego.
No.
A well insulated, that's something people don't think about. Like your dentist to population ratio could be good, but if it's not a well insulated area, it could easily change and become not good. But if you're well insulated, it's going to typically change or get better. I mean, it's going to typically not change, stay the same, or get better if you're well insulated.
No, it's true. Right now, there's 30 dentists competing, but it's an area of 120,000 people. So it's a good spot.
So this is kind of an interesting time to be doing all of this. How do you feel like the pandemic has affected this search and journey for you and your transition into becoming an owner from an employee?
It actually kicked it into high gear. Yeah. So for the last year or so, I was already preparing. But when the pandemic hit, I thought to myself, old dentists are going to be retiring left and right. People are going to be selling because I was expecting the economy to not be doing so hot. And I was expecting to get some discount deals, you know, when it comes to disease and when it comes to debt. Those are things that motivate people to move.
They are.
And yeah. So when I saw that, I was just like, I need to know exactly. I actually got furloughed because I caught COVID. I actually had the full sense of symptoms. I had COVID. I ended up losing sense of taste and smell, all the hallmark symptoms. And I ended up getting unemployment. And I thought to myself, this is my opportunity. I'm getting paid to start my own practice at this point. Yeah. So I stayed home. I worked every day trying to get this ready to go, and I positioned myself for success.
Yeah. So what was your associate working life like? Would you work in private? Did you work in corporate? Like, how were you working before? And what was that like before you got COVID and got out? Yeah. Which sounds like it was a blessing.
It definitely was. So it was a silver lining. So I started off at the largest corporate chain in California, Pacific.
Okay.
And that was not a great experience. I moved then towards a smaller corporate chain here. They have about 15 offices nearby. And they were better in that they paid me a consistent wage. I didn't have to worry about making minimum wage one day because there was no base and there was no work to be done with HMOs. And I appreciated that for it. But they really they ran me into the ground. I was doing everything. I was doing, at one point, I was doing 2 doctors' work when one of the doctors called out. Instead of rescheduling the patients, they just threw it onto my schedule. Yeah. And I ended up seeing over 30 patients in a day. I mean, I thought to myself at that time, this is a good opportunity for me to see how fast I can really go and see how I can handle an emergency situation. But it's not something that's sustainable. And the wage was not like making $650 for 30 patients of work, not exactly what I wanted to be paid.
And the thing is, like, your overhead's going to be so low. Like, your fixed costs are $3,000 a month. Like, you said, you know, you kind of want to do high volume, lean and mean, but you don't even have to. Like, even if you do low volume and see a few people, you're probably going to make as much or more money seeing a third of the patients that you're making at the other job.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, stumbling onto this course was one of the biggest benefits that I've ever had to my career.
Let's say, like, how much at your associate job, how much would you produce in a month? Like, ballpark.
A minimum, I think 40,000 was like roughly what I would produce. I mean,
even if which isn't a huge number, you know, but if you keep that number the same, 40,000, but now your fixed cost is 3,000. Okay. Yeah. So you've got $37,000 left for the month. You pay, you know, a couple employees, you pay the light bill and, you know.
Yeah, that's a 300 plus income every year.
Yeah. And how old are you?
28, just turned.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was always weird when my friends would be like, wait, how old's your mentor? I'm like, about a year older than me.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Um, let's see. I take it that this place, did they have any like sort of restrictive covenant that you had to work around? Like couldn't work within a certain number of miles?
No,
No.
California apparently doesn't hold those up, so that
Good.
worked out pretty nicely.
Cool. Um, let's see. So when you decided to go down this path, like was there anything that you were like afraid of, any fears that you had going into it at
Oh,
any point?
definitely.
Because like
I
obviously you
mean,
were an associate for some period of time. So was there any point where you were like afraid to make the jump into ownership?
yeah. So I would say that one of the big things for me, and this is getting a little more to the personal side of why
Hmm.
I wanted to go to ownership. I, when I was in dental school, I realized I didn't really like it that much,
Hmm.
and I'm more of a theoretical kind of person. I'm more of the analytical type of guy. And so, moving towards dentistry and moving towards ownership, I thought to myself, am I going to be locked into even more debt for the rest of my life and going to be stuck in this place where I can't ever do anything else with
That's
my
a big
time?
fear, you know?
It's a big fear of mine. Yeah, it's. I'm doubling down now, and now I can just be locked into this forever. And for me, the freedom of ownership really is about the freeing up your time
Hmm.
as well. Eventually, my vision includes having associates, moving towards a lighter schedule, doing other things with what I want to be, maybe going back to school and studying
Yeah.
what I always want to do, was like physics and math.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. And you mentioned associates, like even in a four op situation, expanded hours, you can have associates. If you have the office open, you know, I mean, really, you could have the office open 7 days a week, 6, 7 days a week, split
the idea.
schedules, to have two, three
Yeah.
doctors working there. You can do a
Yep.
lot in four
Yeah.
ops.
Ideally 7:30 to 7:30,
Yeah.
maybe add an extra op, and I mean that's very similar to how Comfort Dental does it.
Yeah.
And so I mean the lean and mean style, it started with them arguably,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Oh, for sure. So, like to be at this point at 28, like one of the younger doctors, you probably had to have like at least inklings of wanting to do this while you were a student, I would think. Um, what do like how what do you feel like your peers, like your peers, classmates think about you jumping in this soon? You know, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to." Because this is my thoughts on starting earlier. I did a startup. I didn't buy it, obviously. I started from scratch. I opened my office when I was 27. Um, the way I think about it is when you're going into ownership, there's going to be certain bumps and bruises. There's going to be lessons you have to learn, experience you have to gain. Do you want to gain these experiences at 28, 29 years old and then be a pro at 35? Or gain these experiences at, not start till you're 35, then have all your bumps and bruises at 35, 36 when you have, a couple kids, a mortgage, and okay, maybe now you don't really settle into your stride till you're 40, 45 years old. Meanwhile, the person who started at 27, 28, by the time they're 45 years old, they can probably retire if they want to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I mean
and you're
it's
going to
kind of
have the
like
same
how,
bumps and bruises
yeah,
either way. Get them out of the way sooner if it's what you want to do.
it's like how when you invest in the market, you want to invest early
Hmm.
and often. You want to get that compound, and for owning a business, it's kind of the same deal. You want to compound that wisdom over time, get to a better place earlier on.
Hmm.
I know that I talk to a lot of my friends. I'm in a lot of group chats with a lot of them. One of the big fears holding them back is I'm already in this much debt. How am I going to
Yeah.
take on more debt from
Yeah.
where I'm at?
That was like a big driving factor with the whole approach that I took myself and the approach that I teach through the course. Um, I did a startup. I spent on the practice. I spent less than 100. I spent like 85K to do the startup,
Crazy.
and then it does the numbers that it does now, which I post in the group.
Yeah, I mean that's actually what ended up driving me to your
Yeah,
course. Was I was in one of those groups and they said, "Hey, check out D'Angelo Webster. He's doing 33% overhead." I'm like, "That's not a real number.
it's a real
I don't
number. And
believe."
now, I mean, and now that you have gone into the numbers, and now that you see what your overhead's going to be like, I mean, I could, I mean, if that's your fixed cost, I mean, I could see your overhead realistically being like 25, 30%. Like if you want to,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Fingers crossed. I'm gonna try and you set the bar. I'm gonna try and beat that
yeah.
high score.
And this is the thing. Like, maybe eventually when you get into things, you want to start spending more money and have a higher overhead. But it's going to be a choice. If you
Right.
want to push things higher and push things higher, you can. But if you just want to produce 40,000, 50,000 a month and make the income that you mentioned, you can. And you can
Yeah.
have that extra time to, you said you were really into math and physics. You might go back to school for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a freedom. That's really what I'm optimizing for. It's about trying to escape the need to produce and move towards
Mm-hmm.
the ability to
Yep.
produce.
When your fixed costs are 3,000 a month, there's no need to produce. There's never the pressure of like, okay, this is like a big filling, but maybe we do a crown because we get a little more money. Like there's no pressure in your treatment planning. There's no pressure when you're talking to your patients. Your staff, I feel like, are going to know that like he's not all out to make a bunch of money, because you're not going to have that pressure to make money because your bills are so low that you can just treat people the way you want to treat them, practice dentistry the way you want to practice dentistry. Life is good.
Yeah, and it'll come out in my patient interactions. They sense that. They
Yeah.
sense if there's that need to get money versus this guy's looking out for my interests. And I want to be that guy. I want to be looking out for their interests.
Is the selling doctor, is he staying on it all, or is there any transition period? He's going to be with you a couple months, or is it just handing off the keys? How did you guys work that out?
He's gonna stay for about 6 to 8 weeks. And I asked him to take some photos with me as well as write a handwritten letter that I can then copy and send to all the patients. Yeah, try and get that transition.
How many staff does he have?
He has one front desk / DA, so
Okay.
I'm going to have to hire.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hire. You're gonna have to hire one in the front and then one assistant. You'll be good to go. With hygiene, I say in practices like this, do your own hygiene until it feels annoying, whenever that point is for you. As soon as you hit the moment, like, why am I doing these? Get a hygienist. If you never hit that point, don't get one. That guy never did. But if you hit that point, like 2 months in, you're like, oh, I could be doing so much other stuff. Why am I doing a prophy? That's when you get your hygienist.
He does have a hygienist actually, but he's paying her $50 per patient, which I don't know if you can do that. I think that's an independent contractor deal. Yeah.
Huh. $50 a patient.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. I mean, that's just like a head count commission pay style, which I guess you can do.
Yeah.
Anything's negotiable, I suppose.
Yeah. That's probably big, especially if I'm doing HMOs and they got $0 profies. I mean, that's a big question mark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's some plans like that out there, so make sure you're well versed on those for sure.
Right. Yeah, big part of it is going to be learning the
$0 profies with those HMOs.
They have $0 profies, $0 X-rays, exams. Pretty crazy. I mean, HMOs, you gotta know the system to make it work.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I don't work with any HMOs, but so just learning from you a little bit. I mean, $0 prophy, $0 X-rays. Like, how do you benefit from HMOs? Like, why do you take one in a situation like that? Just for the volume of the restorative dentistry?
You want to get a lot of volume because of the capitation. Yeah. So they are going to pay you $5 a head, and you get enough of that, you have a cost.
So they're going to give you money for each patient that you take that walks through the door that has this plan.
Right. And then even if they don't end up coming back, as long as they don't assign somewhere else, you still get that capitation going. Okay. And then if you're trying to do restorative, they are going to try and get you to do the basic covered benefit, which is usually amalgam versus composite, and usually a silver crown versus like a zirconium crown, for example. And so you're going to want to try and explain to the patient, like, amalgams have such and such benefits, composite have such and such. I wouldn't get a metal crown in my mouth. If they really wanted one, I would end up doing it for them because that's their plan. But it's not very hard in California to tell people you don't want a metal crown in your mouth.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that.
And yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing about being an owner. Like, you can practice whatever way you want. You could, when your fixed overhead is $3,000 a month, you could easily tomorrow say, okay, I'm going to go fee for service if you want to.
Yeah.
Or you can say, you know what, I want to see more people. I want to help more people in the community. I want to see as many patients as I can and help them. Then you take all the insurance plans you can.
Yeah. It's definitely, there's choices to be made. And that's what's really nice about it.
And you've positioned yourself well to be able to make some good choices. I'm really happy for you.
I had some help.
I'm really happy for you. And just to circle back around to like what you were saying that you were afraid of, like basically your big fear was like having more, like you wanted to be an owner, but you were afraid of burying yourself in more debt.
Yeah.
And your way out of that fear was just to come up with a strategy to become an owner without having the big debt.
Basically, enough that I could basically pay it out of pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I honestly, this is the greatest blessing I've ever had, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
I'm really excited too. I usually like to keep these interviews right around a half an hour, so we're right under 30 minutes right now. So I think that the group's going to benefit a lot from hearing your story, Ali. I'm going to have this posted soon, and I look forward to updates from you. I look forward to continuing our dialogue as you go along and you grow your practice and you're making adjustments and you're having different hurdles here and there. Reach out to me anytime, of course, via email, via chat. I'll get right back to you. And I'm really excited for all the things that you're about to do and all the positive, awesome ways that your life is about to upgrade from here.
I appreciate it, Doc, and as always, your mentorship is worth the world.
Okay.
It's really fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.